is this leap? What are we doing? Why are we here? Why is the world in so much turmoil? Why does it look like so much good is being attacked or dismantled? It's because a shift is being asked of us, all of us, and each of us, to wake up to our responsibility as for being here, to actually pull up in ourselves a willingness to meet life now, here, in the full recognition that we have a role to play. And for us awakened beings, as all of you are, to some extent or another, you're coming here of your own volition or you've been dragged here. Either way, it's taking you to what's being asked of humanity. What's being asked of humanity because we are the only ones who can respond to the cry of the world. See, the world isn't just an object in space. The world is actually a living being, and it's fact conscious through each of us and in each of us. We are the means by which the mother can make this leap for us, as us, with us. So I give this context to recognize that all the little ruminations and miseries and worries and anxieties of our personal lives are really not so important in the context of where we find ourselves. Historically, it's been war, it's been deprivation, it's been violence that man did to man, humanity did to other parts of humanity. Disrespecting that essential sacredness that every human being carries. Destroying it, killing it, veiling it, burying it. But we're in another time. Humanity is no longer in charge of the lessons that are coming. It is, however, responsible for them. And us waking up to our responsibility means that we look to see what part we have played. What are we carrying that is perpetuating the error? Where are we claiming our own selfish considerations over that which is really greater than us? We have lost the sense of what it is that we matter, and therefore the role and the reason we were born. This is why you're awake. This is why you've awakened. Because that quality in you that could awake is really the essence of all of life. This essence is actually a being, not just the world mother. The world mother also, she is just an expression of this being. We are, however, the only self-aware expressions of that being that could actually come forward and create a new paradigm, a new way of being for humanity that is actually being called for. Get over ourselves. Take responsibility for whatever that role may be that's showing up in your life at any one moment. And I assure you, it'll show up as the current unworkability. We're the ones that make the unworkability unworkable. We make simply things happening, and we create them into the problems and the issues that we have not yet met. This shifting that's being offered to humanity is a new perspective, a new place to stand from as we look into the challenges and the problems that are arising both within ourselves, in those that we are in relationship with, and in the world. Because they're all here with each of us. There's no other place you need to be than here with yourself, with this perspective, this context, that allows you to see that everything that is arising has a purpose, and that your job is to meet it, not feed it, not be fearful of it, not try to control it, try to make it different, but to allow it to show itself, to speak what it has to say, to reveal its nature so it can be released. See, the cumulative darkness, the cumulative avoidance, the cumulative denial, the cumulative resistance is now pervading everything, even your awakened consciousness. It's veiling us, and it's forcing us into these little enclaves of separateness to protect ourselves rather than call us up to the fullness of the opportunity of this life, this time, these times. So I am a spiritual teacher. I speak of the awakening. I speak of the stages of the journey. I empower you to find that understanding, that collaboration in your intelligence with the process of your own awakening and your own transformation, should you be so graced by that. But my greater work is for humanity. So I bring that here too. And as we gather here in this context that I hold, and that many of you now hold, to recognize you're here for the world, not just for yourself, but also to include the human in this challenge, to strengthen its ability to endure what will be coming, to hold the space for humanity's transition, to be the one, like the mother or the father, that holds the child of the developing humanity as it goes through this rebellion and this resistance and this denial of anything to limit it. In fact, heading towards its own self-indulgent destruction. It needs to grow up. And we are the ones that can hold the space for this vast immaturity that has not been recognized or taken responsibility for. We need to be the grown-ups to hold this transition and hold in the steadiness of your own realization that it all has a purpose. That's all pointing to something that has not yet emerged, that's struggling to emerge. And yes, it will be all that has been denied, resisted, suppressed, buried, but it'll also be what comes when that is met. We're on the cusp of a transition from an embedded darkness that humanity has been accumulating for thousands and thousands of years into a period of incredible, extraordinary enlightenment. And what is it going to be enlightening? It'll be enlightening the possibility of humanity together for all who have yet to come in the thousands and thousands of generations that have yet to be born. So this is the context. And I too am just a person. And I'm speaking these words. How is it possible? Where does this come from? It's not the person so much as that which I am with. That which now finds its voice. And this is the possibility I see in everyone who comes to me. To be the voice, to be the person of that Supreme Being that is here, holding throughout ages far, far beyond our ability to comprehend. Before humanity came into birth, before this cycle of humanity over its 200,000 years has evolved. This is the holding of an intelligence that is purposeful and is so vast and so eternal that we can't imagine it even from our most open, awakened minds, the fullness. So that holds. It's what holds it all. It's what sustains it all. And that lives within us. When we tune ourselves to that possibility within ourselves, within our bodies, within our hearts, within our minds, within our intelligence, then we begin to be inhabited and to inhabit a new humanity. It's a space. It's a possibility. It's a space that itself is not the possibility, but rather creates the possibility. It holds the potentiality of all of existence that has happened, that is happening, and that is yet to happen. It's experienced as a vast, still presence. It's experienced as emptiness, but also a freedom, fear or need or want, or a judgment of any of it. It is in that space that we live. Even in the physical world, this world floats in that space of unlimited numbers of worlds. That space, that infinite, vast potentiality lives within us, not just outside. Our ability to recognize what we are in that eternal presence that we are is the outcome of all our seeking in all our lives, and for that which is here with you now. So we're going to put this to work in this gathering. We're going to take us into a place of being able to tap into that eternal presence. And from that, to open up to use our bodies as channels for that principle to come into the world. Some of you have been experiencing this happening in all the times we've done world peace meditations and where we've done these interventions. But many of you open that just by participating. Maybe at first it's just like a possibility or just a faint sensation, maybe even disruptive. But in time, it becomes a current. The current is evidence that we can actually participate with a universal movement, an evolutionary shifting that is occurring with great intensity in these times. The whole world is awake. The fact that I can sit in this little place in Washoe Valley in this lovely building is evidence that we're in relationship with each other in ways that were unheard of in any other time of human history. In that sense, we are awake. In that sense, we can see the peril. And in that sense, together, we can see the purpose that lies inherent in the perilousness of what's coming. And it happens on many levels, not just this level that we'll be participating in today, in our psychic beings and in our higher selves, our universal being. It'll happen throughout the world because it'll be like a doorway for humanity that is looking for a way of this passage through this time of transition. It's crying out for how do we do this? Because there's nothing in the past that can tell us what will work. All it can do is tell us where we could do it wrong, as we've done so many times before. Perpetuating, putting it off till another generation, never coming to the full consequence of choices made out of ignorance, out of hatred, out of cruelty, out of deep, profound selfishness or separation. So we're now acutely aware of these things. In whatever area of our lives where we feel there's injustice, or we feel it's wrong, or feel it should be different, we have our own version of that in our own personal self, our own repulsions, our own selfishness, our own saying, I refuse, I don't want to, I can't do this. Probably the greatest impediment that keeps us hidden is our depression, our negative self-judgment, our unwitting shame that we've taken on or added to in the course of our lives. We keep ourselves small for fear of being more. And to wake up, because the little ego doesn't know how to do this. And I assure you, the Supreme Being knows this. That's why when we open to it, in whatever form, in Christ, in Buddha, in whatever form has come throughout the ages, it has empowered and strengthened us little weak humans to come into life more truly, more fully. Even with the false promise of heaven, versus we're avoiding hell at the best. It still empowers us to know there's something more, there's something greater. Now, I know this because I've experienced it. I had no idea it existed. I was a perfectly happy agnostic. I didn't need it to be an afterlife. Either way, I was fine. I did not know of this. Yet for some reason, all of this was physically, experientially shown to me endlessly over years and years and years. So I speak from that vantage point of once having been a fully developed human being and discovering this possibility as a divine being. I am just as skeptical of these words that come out of my mouth as some of you may be. It's like, I wonder, what is it that speaks? What is this force? Where do these words come from? It's the same thing in the book of the Bhagavad Gita, where Arjuna became more because he inhabited Krishna, or you could say the other way around, Krishna inhabited him. Not that Arjuna was any different than Krishna, but Arjuna, the person, didn't know it. And thus he went to battle. So too are we. We are now in battle. We're in the arena. All your life has prepared you for this time. Whatever be the remaining years you have on the planet. So I'm in this wonder that I share with you, this wondrous possibility. And also that I give you this structure that my teacher gave to me, this world peace meditation, as a means of organizing ourselves collectively to accelerate our evolution as individuals, both as human beings and as divine beings, to a place of maturity, of responsibility, of presence, of fullness, of grace, of love unbounded, of a determinate will, a resolve that goes beyond ourselves, to be part of a current that's much greater than ourselves, to feel this flow through the veins and nervous system, the nadis and the chakras of our systems, to feel that force seeking to manifest itself through us, as us. So all that I've taught, all that you have lived, all that you have learned, all the wisdom that has come to you is to gather here, to be here now, in this moment, with me, with those who are with me physically, and to all the rest of you who are with me here in this modality and those that are in the domains and the bleachers listening to this, all of us together can create something in this moment that will bring to fulfillment all sorrow, all grief, all suffering, all struggle, all effort, all longing, all striving, in whatever form it may be, to completion, to its fullness in this moment. To play your part, to take a stand on the stage of this time of transition, to serve something so vast and so great that no doubt it is not knowable, is not even able to be recognized when it walks into you. But be willing. Be willing. You don't need to believe this. Just be willing to recognize the experience of what is going to be happening now in this gathering. To open yourself to knowing in new ways, to accessing a different way of knowing yourself, your body, and to bring all parts of you into this particular technique, to stay present with it to whatever extent you can, to be able to follow through with the instructions that I will be giving to the best you can, and just follow this structure. That'll be enough. And of course, you're all here as an expression of that willingness. There's really nothing more than that, but to show up. Because the universe will find its way to you, through you. It may take time for some of you, more time than others, but for some of you, you already are tapping into that current. And this will help it grow. It will help clear the channels. It'll help this recognition of what it is you are, the miracle of the human body, the miraculous quality of your own self-awareness, the ability to bring all parts of yourself into a present moment. So in this technique, the World Peace Meditation, which we're going to call the World Awakening Meditation in the future, is a means to evoke structures that exist in the subtle world. Just like we exist in the physical body, we also exist in a subtle physical body, in multiple subtle physical bodies, concurrently. Even if our consciousness is locked into our physical mind, physical emotion, physical body, we're linked to all bodies, and those bodies are linked to domains, each proportional to the body they're inhabiting. So when we do this, we're bringing all our multiple bodies into this body. And we're being the means of using this body, which is the only body that matters in the domain of consequences, of karma, of dharma. Being in a body gives you a PowerPoint in the ability to impact the whole world. It is from us in our bodies consciously, aligning all our parts to become a channel from a force that comes from the Supreme, comes into our body, finds a place in the middle of our body, the third chakra, in the belly. And we hold it there, evoking the forces of the creation and the forces of the unmanifest powers to be present. And we hold it there for some moments. And in the process, while we hold it there in the middle of our body, we call forth all that has not been seen, met, or has yet to evolve. That which is emerging from the inconscience of the collective consciousness, not just human collective consciousness, but the consciousness of matter, of physical matter in all its forms and its chemistries and its electrical properties, its magnetic properties, calling forth all of it to come up and join with that supreme force from above. And it's in the mixture of those two in our bodies that we create a form of fusion, a form of coming to a reconciling of two absolutely extreme polarities in which the entire creation arises, at the seat of all dualities, of all structures, of existence itself and of consciousness itself in our bodies. Now this sounds like, well, what are you talking about? I assure you, it is what happens. But we are so insulated, we're so dense, we're so habituated to our embodiment that we can't recognize the vastness of what it is we are, nor its power. And then, when those two hold together, we exhale this combined breath, and I will direct it. It's where we direct it. We can direct it upward, but it doesn't need it. We direct it outward, or we direct it back into the darkness, into the roots of the error of the world itself. And this way, awakening all that which is yet to be hidden, because it's only by discovering what's hidden that we can make it through this transition, so that we can change our behaviors, so that we can wake up to the consequences when we're taking the action that's creating the consequence, rather than some centuries down the road, some generation that is yet to be awakened. So we tap into universal principles, rules, laws, like gravity, like attraction and repulsion, inertia and resistance. That's true in the domain of consciousness. And we mobilize this to bring to humanity a strength, a resolve, a clarity, and most importantly, an awakening to our responsibility for where we find ourselves. So the technique has some parts, and I think now we'll go into that. Dr. Mia, I'm going to call you forward to define the structure. So there are many of you who have participated with this before, but those of you who haven't, we'll go over it in a little more detail.
Okay, so here is our World Peace Meditation review. We'll go through the steps of what we're going to do, and then Satri will actually come back and go into detail. So for step 1, we all together will chant Om aloud 9 times. Then step 2 is the chant Hirana Garbaya mantra, which we will also chant aloud 9 times, led by Satyagita on recording. Step 3 is our Om Tat Sat Om technique that we do silently for 10 minutes. And step 4, we sit in balance for the remainder of our time, which at that point, Satri usually gives some technique or some visualization he'd like us to do. And then we ask that you remain inward and in silence for an additional 10 minutes after the program is over, after the World Peace Meditation is over, to allow this to sit within your body. Okay, Satri.
Yes, and before I go into this, I just want to inform you that the programs that are organized for next week are all about taking this theme further.
Starting with Tuesday.
Starting on Tuesday.
Yes.
So that these are all to empower you to recognize what it is that is I'm speaking of, and what it is in the relative larger context of spirituality and humanity. So we will begin to take this further.
Right, so they'll have the Tuesday program, then we have, which is a satsang, which is our regular Tuesday 1-hour satsang. We'll have a 2-hour satsang on Friday, and then the all-day intensive, or well, partially all-day, 4-hour intensive on Saturday. So these are all 3 linked together. Okay.
So this is our push into this new year, and this is the leaping into whatever that next may be. All right, so we share this now because when we finish this technique, there will be no formal exiting. I will simply, Satchmai and I will, well, maybe not Satchmai.
No, I like to stay.
We'll leave the room. And the invitation is to stay where you are for as long as that's there. Usually when I leave, I usually have to spend at least an hour absorbing what happened. So give yourself time to take in whatever comes to you, at least 10, 15 minutes. after this ends, and then I will see you later. So this is my farewell as we begin the technique.
Okay.
Okay, so we chant Om. Om, of course, evokes the vibrational field of the Brahman. So this is the reflection of that principle I call the Sat in existence. The Brahman is the vibrational field, the blank canvas in which all of the creation arises. It's a force. It's a conscious vibration that's everywhere, in us, outside of us, permeating everything in all infinities of all existences. So when we speak Om, that's the human Sanskrit word for evoking it, and because humanities have evoked that word Om for so long, it actually brings it up into our consciousness. And when we do that collectively, it becomes a tangible field. It clears the palette. It whitens out the canvas, and it prepares for what comes next. Then we will do a prayer, an invocation, in fact. And we use the invocation because we're still little human beings in our own little miserable self, and we got to call for help in order to access anything greater. So that's the truth of things. So we evoke this principle I speak of as the Supreme Being, this Hirana Garbaya mantra. And this we will show you in the transliteration. It's a chant, it's a mantra. It's best if you can speak it aloud or follow along as best you can if it's new, but if not, you can just feel the vibration of it and flow with whatever comes for you. It will bring down that quality of the Supreme Being, asking it to come into our bodies. We don't know the power of our prayer. We don't know the power that we bring when we ask for the universe to help or to step in. So this together, we will ask for this. For each of us who are participating freely, this is not for the whole world that we ask. And then the technique itself. I described the fundamentals behind it, the Om, Tat Sat Om, and it basically follows our breath where we consciously choose to breathe. Breath is a reflection of our interconnectedness, right? We all breathe in and exhale into the same air, no matter where you are on the planet. Whatever air we breathe in was exhaled by some being, some living creature, some plant, somewhere. And we're taking it all in when we inhale. And we're mingling this universal air with our air. And when we consciously do that, and we bring in this field of Om with that, we empower it to come to its feed the cauldron of what happens when we think Tat Sat as we breathe in, imagining our breath going all the way down into our bellies, into our third chakra, which is inside your body, deep inside, up against the spine, right below the navel. And if you become aware of it, you can feel the tangible location. And you think Tat Sat, and that is where you hold your breath for as long as you're comfortable, as long as you can, without too much strain. But then also, just before you feel you have to exhale, you take another inhale, and you hold that for a few moments longer. And then when you exhale, you think Om as you spread it back into the broader field of consciousness that we're inhabiting. So it's a taking it in and giving it back, taking it in and giving it back. It's actually an act of gratitude. It's an act of appreciation. It's an act of acknowledging the fact that without breath we would die very quickly. And that it's all our breath combined that keeps us alive. And it points to our interrelatedness as a species with all life on the whole planet. Then we'll do this mantra. You'll do it silently for 10 minutes. When the gong goes off, I will then look to see what I will ask you to do. And it will probably continue the technique, but then I will ask you to direct it in some way. Now, at first, this may be an imagination, and some of you can maybe do this or maybe not. You just intend for that to happen. And if you can visualize it, then do happen. Sometimes it's a very tangible, energetic sensation of it happening. Sometimes it'll just be an ideation. But even the imagination opens a pathway for this force to come through you, through your attention, through your where you put your attention. And then that will continue for whatever time. It should be a half an hour or so. And then you just, when that time completes, you sit in silence for the 10 or 15 minutes. Then I'll leave the room, for sure. Maybe Swachmai. We'll see.
Mhm.
Okay, let's go look at the mantra. So here's the mantra. It's a Sanskrit mantra. My teacher created this, actually, pulled it together. I'm very experienced in this technology of mantras. And on one side is the transliteration, the Om Namo Hirana Garbaya. It's just the reorganization of the Sanskrit into English letters. And then on the other side, the phonic rendition is the sound, what it sounds like. And the sound is Om Namo Hirana Garbaya Satchitananda Mortaye Satyajyoti Swarupaya Tatpurushaya Te Namaha Tatpurushaya Te Namaha Tatpurushaya Te Namaha. Okay, that will be, we will have Satgita, who is a singer, professional singer, has done the mantra, and she will sing it for us. We'll just follow along to whatever extent we can. We'll do this part aloud. Then before we move on, let's go back to the meaning of the Hirana Garbaya. There you go. And it's basically an evocation. And as I read this, I seem to evoke it. So please bear with me as I do this. To the Supreme Being, we evoke you. We call you to come and manifest your force of Satchitananda into and through our bodies. May your supreme presence, consciousness, and love come into the world. We salute you. We evoke you. We call you. We bow to you. O Supreme Absolute Awareness, please come and manifest thyself. O embodiment of supreme truth, light, and love. Okay, good. So we're going to start with the Om. We'll do this together aloud 9 times. Follow along as best you can. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Now we begin the technique, the mantra.
Om Namo Satchidanandamurtaye Satyajyoti Svarupaya Tatpurushaya Te Namaha Tatpurushaya Te Namaha Tatpurushaya Te Namaha Om Namo Hiranyagarbhaya Satchidanandamurtaye Satyajyoti Svarupaya Tatpurushaya Te Namaha Tatpurushaya Te Namaha Tatpurushaya Te Namaha Om Namo Hiranyagarbhaya Satchidanandamurtaye Satyajyoti Svarupaya Tatpurushaya Te Namaha Tatpurushaya Te Namaha Tatpurushaya Te Namaha Om Namo Hiranyagarbhaya Satchidanandamurtaye Satyajyoti Svarupaya Tatpurushaya Te Namaha Tatpurushaya Te Namaha Tatpurushaya Te Namaha Om Namo Hiranyagarbhaya Satchidanandamurtaye Satyajyoti Svarupaya Tatpurushaya Te Namaha Tatpurushaya Te Namaha Tatpurushaya Te Namaha Om Namo Hiranyagarbhaya Satchidanandamurtaye Satyajyoti Svarupaya Tatpurushaya Te Namaha Tatpurushaya Te Namaha Tatpurushaya Te Namaha Om Namo Hiranyagarbhaya Satchidanandamurtaye Satyajyoti Svarupaya Tatpurushaya Te Namaha Tatpurushaya Te Namaha Tatpurushaya Te Namaha Om Namo Hiranyagarbhaya Satchidanandamurtaye Satyajyoti Svarupaya Tatpurushaya Te Namaha Tatpurushaya Te Namaha Tatpurushaya Te Namaha Om Namo Hiranyagarbhaya Satchidanandamurtaye Satyajyoti Svarupaya Tatpurushaya Te Namaha Tatpurushaya Te Namaha Tatpurushaya Te Namaha.
Now I'll say aloud the technique 3 times. First you breathe in, thinking Om. Om. Tat, tat. You say this when it gets to the 3rd chakra, shortly, brief, sharply like this. And now we hold our breath for as long as we can. And take a 2nd breath on top of that. Holding that. And then exhale, thinking Om. I'll do that again without the commentary. One more time. Om Tat Sat. Om. 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 Begin the technique. We will be continuing the technique. What to imagine is that your body is like a pump, where when you breathe in and you hold your breath, you're breathing in the Sat force, the supreme force from above, and holding it in your belly and creating, thinking the Tat Sat, the transmuting force in your belly that converts all that is dark into light, transmutes all that resists and opposes into willingness and openness. And then when you exhale, you release the debris of that transmutation and offer it up back to the Supreme to take it further, to create a space, a possibility for humanity. And while you do the technique, breathing in, holding, and letting it out above, imagine the earth in your belly, that you breathe for the world. As you bring in the breath, you're holding the whole world, and you're holding that transmutative force for the whole world in your belly. And when you exhale, you release that piece of the transmutation and release it up, 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 and out, like the debris from a fire into the air, into the higher space of infinity. Follow along as best you can. And that'll be enough. Now for the balance of the 15 minutes that's left, I want you to pace yourself when you're doing the technique. Do the technique 3 times in a row and then take a long pause and then do it again 3 times for the remaining time. Don't overstrain your system.